Platoon F, Liberating the Package, by John P. Logston and Christopher P. Young. Copyright John P. Logston and Christopher P. Young. Narrated by John P. Logston. Produced by Living Audio. Once you enter the universe of Platoon F, your life will never be the same again. Chapter 1. Orders. Ensign Orion Murphy had his whole life ahead of him, or so he thought. He'd just been selected by Rear Admiral Parfait to run an undercover mission. While he had no idea precisely what the mission entailed, he didn't expect it would be all that wonderful considering that the upper echelons of the military brass had come up with it. "The Rear Admiral will see you now, Ensign," said a young man who acted as Parfait's secretary. Murphy entered the office and came to full attention, including the required Segnol Space Marine Corps salute that consisted of having the right arm bent, with the hand flat out, thumb tucked under, and the first finger touching the forehead over the right eye. It was much better than the Segnol Space Navy salute, which prescribed that both hands be placed over the eyes while the thumbs were looped at the jaw, and then the soldier would lift their hands 3 times in a peekaboo fashion while making a bloop-bloop sound. It had something to do with making one look like a fish, and that made no sense since there weren't any fish in space. The Rear Admiral sat at his desk clicking away. Based on the reflection coming from the back window, Murphy assumed that he was looking at anatomy photos of some sort, though he couldn't imagine why. They weren't in a medical unit after all. Parfait was an elderly man with a thick mane of white hair, squinty gray eyes, and a thin face. He was roughly as tall as Murphy, who came in at slightly over 6 feet, though his record listed him as 6 feet 2 inches. Parfait wasn't exactly imposing, but he was the brass, and that meant that he held Murphy's fate in his hands. "At ease, Murphy," Parfait said as he closed his computer down. Murphy dropped the salute and crossed his hands behind his back. "It's been a little over a year since you left advanced training, no?" asked Parfait. "Yes, sir." Parfait nodded and got that faraway look that spelled he was about to say something inappropriate. "I remember my days in advanced training, challenging obstacle courses, long runs, late nights, men stuffed in barracks that were far too confining, their sweaty bodies entwined." "Sir?" "You called me in to discuss orders." "Oh, yes, of course." Parfait stood up and walked over to the wall where a large screen was encased in a plastic frame. He tapped it and it lit up, showing the picture of a shirtless man on the beach. Parfait turned a nice shade of red. "Oh, how'd that get there?" He quickly clicked it away. "Guessing that the younger staff are playing a joke, eh?" "As you say, sir." "Right. Well, let me pull up your mission details." The screen flickered momentarily and then revealed a map of planets that sat outside the rail system. "Are you familiar with Lopso 2? "No, sir." "It's a small planet that lies about 1 light-year away from the Courtnor." "The Courtnor? You mean the robot planet, sir?" "That's the one, Ensign." Parfait tapped the screen again and it zoomed in. "There's a package on Lopso 2 that I need you to retrieve." "Yes, sir," Murphy said, and then added, "How, sir?" "You'll take the rails to the Chaffian hub, and there you'll pair up with a couple of Courtnor robots who will shuttle you the rest of the way." Murphy nodded. "When you arrive, you'll have to sneak in, take the package, and get back here safely." "Oh, it's a theft, sir." "They stole it from me. I mean us." "I see, sir." "Look, this is going to be a dangerous mission, Murphy," Parfait noted as he shut the screen back down. "If you're captured, we'll disavow our involvement, and they'll probably shoot you." "I understand," Murphy said stoically while the Rear Admiral returned to his desk. "May I ask what's in the package, sir?" "Highly classified," Murphy said in a stern voice. "Do not open that package under any circumstances. Are we clear?" "Yes, sir." Parfait relaxed slightly. "Now, sorry to get all riled up, Ensign. It's just that the contents of this package could well do us, in the SSMC, incredible harm." "I shall keep it under wraps, sir." "You know, Murphy," Parfait said slowly, "you remind me of one of my crewmates when I was younger. Strong, virile, muscular, tight clothing that accentuates every—" "Sir?" Oh, right. Sorry, memories of my youth, you know. Why, only 2 days ago I was speaking with Admiral Blandish about how we used to bunk together, and let me tell you— Sorry to interrupt, sir, Murphy said quickly, again jolting Parfait from his digression. But when will I be leaving? Oh, Parfait said, looking down at his watch. You should get down to Launch Station 41 now, actually. They're waiting for you. Murphy wanted to sigh, but he held himself in check. Thank you, sir. Dismissed. Chapter 2. The Rails. The transport ship wasn't much to look at, but most of the newer ships weren't. They all had that stark white or sleek silver coloring that spelled functionality. He recalled seeing videos of the 25th anniversary running of the SSMC Reluctant. It was an archaic piece of junk by today's standards, but there was something about that ship that rang true. It was a real ship. It had parts and pieces, and even an engine. Originally, anyway. The engineers had been instructed to remove all fuel-blasting rockets due to pollution and the greenhouse effect that was reported many years back. This meant that all ships were now run via magnetic propulsion via rails. Yes, rails. It was probably the stupidest thing that any spacefaring society could have conceived, and it was a wonder that it worked at all. But that was the way of things on a planet like Segnol. Other alien species who had come to trade with Segnol made many derogatory remarks regarding the rails, and quite a few of them even broke trade agreements due to the idiocy of it all. But the Segnolian Environmental Society would not budge. Murphy stepped up to the door where a lieutenant stood. He saluted at her, but she didn't even bother to look up. You Murphy? Yes, ma'am. Cut the formality. No time for it. Get in and I'll get this damn thing launched. Yes, ma'am. He stepped inside to find a number of other soldiers already seated. There was only one spot left, and it was next to an overweight commander who appeared to be taking up half of the remaining chair. May I sit here, sir? Murphy said with a salute.
Unless you'd rather stand, Ensign, the commander said. I don't see as you'd have much choice.
No, sir. Murphy squeezed in, and the shuttle began to move. The familiar clink-clank could be heard just under the level of the discussions going on around him. The Segnolian engineers had included the sound effect because it seemingly relaxed travelers. Other than that, there was no actual purpose to it. To Murphy, it made it feel as though he were traveling on a train in space. With the rails, that was actually somewhat accurate.
Going on a holiday, Ensign?
Asked the chubby commander. No, sir. I'm on a mission, sir.
Oh? Well, what kind of mission?
Classified, sir.
I'm a commander, Ensign.
Murphy glanced at the stripes on the man's arms. Yes, sir?
That means that I have security clearance.
Ah, right, Murphy said. This order comes from the Rear Admiral's office, though, and he specifically informed me that nobody was to know about the details of my mission, sir.
Oh, I see,
the commander said, grabbing a package of peanuts from the seat-back pouch in front of him.
Must be something good.
I'm not at liberty to say, sir.
Oh, come on, Ensign. You can at least tell me if it's an exciting mission or not, right?
Okay, I suppose you could say it has the potential to be exciting, sir.
Huh, very diplomatic answer.
The commander cracked open a soda.
Want some?
No, thank you, sir. I'm watching my calories.
Same here,
said the commander.
I hate it, too. Do you know that they've threatened to demote me due to my inability to finish the SSMC standard obstacle course in under 3 minutes?
He took a sip of soda.
Idiocy, I say. What does it matter if a man in my position is incapable of climbing over a wall or crawling under some stupid logs? I give orders to people like you to do that sort of thing.
Yes, sir.
They're sending me to a fat camp,
the man said with a grunt.
Can you believe that? A few of my colleagues ended up in one of those places and they said it ain't pretty. They wake you up before dawn, make you do exercises half the day, feed you food that's made for rabbits, and make you watch videos about how eating poorly negatively affects your health. And you're not even given popcorn while watching those stupid videos.
Oh, sounds dreadful, sir.
Exactly, the commander agreed. So it would be nice to at least know that someone out there is having a good time while I'm imprisoned in a cakeless society for the next 3 months.
Murphy said nothing, but he supposed it couldn't really hurt to tell the man that his mission was likely to be exciting. The truth was that Murphy did feel that this was going to be an adventure. At first, he assumed he was simply playing the role of courier, but when Parfait explained that Murphy really had to steal the package, he couldn't help but feel a sense of thrill. He would be like that undercover spy from the movies, Shane Bland, 00719. Maybe he would even get to meet a lady or two and seduce her. though he somewhat doubted that would happen. Well, you never know what can happen on a top-secret mission, sir, Murphy said finally.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you'll have to shoot somebody or something.
Shots could be fired, sir, Murphy said, keeping as vague as possible.
Hey, maybe you'll even get to meet the girl like in Shane Bland 00719.
Not sure if there will be any girls there or not, sir, Murphy admitted. But if there are, I shall endeavor to, get one. The commander leaned back, making the chair groan slightly. He had the look of a man who had been given something to dream about while facing his own personal nightmare. Murphy hadn't given anything away of use, of course. Frankly, Murphy could have been describing participating in the paint pellet gun event on Bosgan, except for the part about the girls anyway.
Now arriving at the Chaffian hub,
the computer chimed. This is my stop, Murphy said as he stood and grabbed his small duffel bag.
Well, good luck to you, Ensign,
the commander said with a nod. You too, sir.
I don't think I'm going to need luck where I'm going. I'll need food.
Chapter 3. Bring on the Clowns. Murphy was the only soldier to exit at the Chaffian hub. Actually, it appeared as if he were the only soldier at the Chaffian hub. There was a civilian guard kicked back with her feet up on a white plastic desk, her hat pulled down over her face. She was snoring. Other than that, he was alone. Every 30 seconds or so, a computerized voice announced the time over the intercom. According to Murphy's watch, the computer was off by a few hours. He was about to approach the guard desk when his eye caught sight of a flashlight down one of the corridors. It was blinking in a controlled manner, indicating that there was some form of intelligence controlling it. 2 short blinks, 1 long, 3 short, 2 long, and then it repeated. He'd seen the code before while in advanced training. The code meant, "Yo, come here." It was military, so he felt inexplicably safe in obeying it. Murphy glanced once more at the guard and decided to let her sleep. He couldn't quite blame her, seeing as the place must have been the worst assignment ever. She had to have done something to piss off her bosses back on Segnol. The hallway was tight and the ceiling dropped to a point where he could reach up and touch it. It was dark except for the blinking light, which continued its rhythmic pulsing. At the other end of the flashlight stood a robot, standard Courtnor model best as Murphy could tell. Ensign Orion Murphy reporting as ordered.
Robot Chug flickering the flashlight as ordered.
Right, you can stop now. Chug stopped. I thought there were supposed to be 2 of you.
There is only one of me,
Chug replied. No, I mean that the Courtnor were supposed to provide 2 robots to assist me.
Yes, you mean Plika,
Chug said.
She's waiting in the ship. She's our pilot.
Good. Chug continued standing there looking at Murphy. The light was too dim to get a solid look at the robot, but it was obvious that he was about Murphy's height and build. At first, he thought that Chug merely had an elongated head, but as Murphy's eyes continued to adjust, he noticed that what he was actually seeing was a top hat. Murphy assumed that there was some reason for the delay, and so he had waited patiently. But after a few minutes, he was getting the feeling that Chug was actually waiting on him. Are you waiting on me for something?
Your orders.
Right. Oh, take me to your ship.
Aye, sir.
Chug spun around and started clomping down the hallway.
Follow me.
Murphy was shocked that the guard could sleep through the sound of this robot's footfalls. One thing was for certain, there was no way this amount of noise was going to allow Murphy to break in and swipe a package from anywhere. They'd be caught within the first 10 steps. Can you possibly walk any quieter? He asked as this section of the hallway brightened considerably.
Not with these things on,
Chug replied as he kept clambering along. Murphy grimaced and looked down at the robot's feet. They were big and floppy, and if he wasn't seeing things, they were also painted red and white. They matched the top hat, which had turned out to be painted similarly. Chug, are you wearing clown shoes?
Yeah,
Chug replied as if Murphy wasn't all that bright.
Kind of goes with the territory.
Can you take them off, please? Chug stopped and looked back at Murphy, putting his hands on his hips.
Are you suggesting that I not be myself?
Yourself?
I'm a clown.
Oh, I thought you were a robot.
Well, yeah, that too, but I was created to be a clown.
Murphy wasn't sure how to respond to this. He was already feeling a bit of nerves doing this mission at all. The last thing he needed was to have to deal with odd robots. Well, you are military, right?
As far as you know,
And you don't think it's wise to walk softly?
soldiers aren't made to think.
Chug answered evenly.
We're made to follow orders.
Right. They went through a few different passageways until they finally reached a doorway that held a flight of stairs. They walked down what felt like 20 levels until Chug opened a side door. A Courtnor shuttle was docked barely inside of the force field that kept the vacuum of space at bay. The ship itself wasn't much to look at. Even the Segnal space shuttle that he had taken here had more pizzazz, and that was saying something. Chug keyed the door panel and it slid open. He moved to the side and saluted as Murphy ducked and walked in. Once inside, Murphy was able to stand at full height. Everything was white. The walls, the floor, and even the ceiling. It felt like a padded room. Of course, seeing that he was on a mission concocted by Parfait, a padded room was fitting. He turned back to see that Chug was still standing outside the door holding his salute. "What are you doing?"
Regulations require that I not drop my salute until you salute back.
Murphy saluted and told Chug to get inside. "Look, Chug, I'm not one of those by-the-book types of soldiers, so let's just skip all this constant saluting and such, okay?"
Nope,
"Why not?"
not in my programming.
Chug said with a shrug. "Unreal," Murphy said irritably. "Can you at least do a little thinking on your own?"
Okie dokie.
Murphy stared at him for a few moments. Chug didn't seem to mind. "Okay, where's the bridge?"
Through that door.
Chug said, pointing. Murphy started walking but looked back to see that Chug was still standing where he'd left him. He sighed and shook his head. "Chug?
Yep.
Are you coming?"
I'm not even breathing heavy.
"What?" said Murphy, feeling confused. And then the joke hit him. "Wow, never thought I'd meet a clown robot who makes dirty jokes."
Another part of my programming, sir.
"Super." Murphy stepped onto the bridge. There was more of the same white that was in the rest of the ship, but at least there was also a wide screen where he could see outside. One would imagine that would help with claustrophobia, and one would be right as long as there were planets or stations within close proximity. Otherwise, the vast emptiness of space could feel crushing indeed. The pilot's chair was empty. His first thought was that the pilot was in the latrine, but robots didn't need to void themselves, unless these were a new model of robot that Murphy had never heard of. He wouldn't be surprised, especially considering that Chug was the first clown robot that he'd ever heard of. "Plika?" he called out. A creaking sound came from his right, and he turned to see another robot was standing there. This one was wearing a rainbow-colored wig and had a big red nose. She honked a horn twice with her one hand as the other started flying towards Murphy with haste. Murphy furrowed his brow as his brain tried to process exactly what the hell was going on. By the time he'd sorted it all out, it was too late. He'd been hit directly in the face. The world went black. Then he sighed heavily, wiped his eyes, and licked his lips. "Lemon meringue?" he asked. Replied Plika in her own way. "Wonderful." Chapter 4. The Plan. "Look," Murphy said as he paced back and forth in front of the two robots. "I'm not saying that you can't be who you are. I'm simply explaining that you're not the ideal, soldiers for this kind of mission."
Then why did your boss specifically ask for us?
Said Chug. Plika honked a horn twice to signal her agreement with Chug's question. "I don't know." Murphy stopped and looked at Chug. "Wait, Rear Admiral Parfait specifically asked for you?"
Yep.
"I don't understand that at all." There must have been something more about this mission that he had yet to learn. Maybe they were going to a convention of some sort, or possibly a children's party. Yes, that had to be it. These two were going to be posing as some form of entertainment while Murphy set about sneaking into the back rooms to find that package. The clowns were a diversion. "I think I get it," Murphy said finally. "Actually, I'm kind of surprised at the forethought of the Rear Admiral. He's not exactly known for this sort of thing." To be fair, Murphy hadn't really known the man all that well. Other than their brief exchanges that often consisted of the Rear Admiral requesting that they exchange their briefs, Parfait was just another member of the brass. This got Murphy thinking even more. A Rear Admiral wouldn't share a lot of details with him, but maybe he would with the Courtnor. "Do you have a copy of the orders from the Rear Admiral?"
Don't think so.
Chug said. "Right," Murphy said, pinching the bridge of his nose as he sat down near the wall. He dug into his duffel bag and pulled out his datapad. After keying in his password, verifying his thumbprint, and going through the obligatory eye scan, the screen opened up and revealed a video of Parfait speaking his orders. Murphy had watched it a few times already, of course, but it was difficult to catch details from Parfait's orders because the man was the king of disturbing revelations. This time, Murphy was going to pay special attention to every word. He gulped and then clicked play.
Does my hair look okay?
Parfait asked while seated at his desk.
Yes, sir,
answered the person behind the camera. Murphy assumed it was Parfait's secretary.
And my uniform?
Perfect, sir.
Parfait sat up straight.
These orders are for Ensign Orion Murphy's eyes only. If you are not Ensign Orion Murphy, I command that you close this down immediately.
Murphy shook his head in the same way that he'd done the first 3 times he'd watched this.
Good. Now, Murphy, your mission is to go to Lopso 2 and liberate the package from the home of Mr. Ivan Avakov. You'll recognize him straight away. He's tall and lean with a neatly trimmed beard and steely blue eyes. He has money, too, loads of it.
Parfait suddenly looked glassy-eyed.
He'll likely be wearing a tight suit that will hug every bulge, too, he added wistfully.
Sir?
The secretary said, jolting Parfait from his fantasy.
Oh, right.
Parfait squared his shoulders again.
Anyway, Murphy, you'll have to arrive precisely on the day of Ivan's birthday, or this'll never work.
Murphy shut off the recording and nodded. So that was the reason that Parfait had requested these 2 bozos. Why this Ivan Avakov fellow, who supposedly had loads of money, would want a clown show for his birthday was beyond Murphy. But if it provided enough of a diversion to allow safe passage for liberating this package, Murphy wouldn't complain.
How long of a show do you 2 have?
He asked Chug.
What?
I'm assuming you've worked up an actual show, right? A clown show?
Chug glanced over at Plika.
Oh, right. Sure, we have a show. Why, it's the greatest show that's ever been.
Great,
said Murphy.
How long is it?
We're still talking about the show, right?
Murphy ignored Chug's attempt at humor.
Yes, we're still talking about the show.
Well, let's see,
Chug said slowly.
If we had brought our robotic lions with us, it would have been a solid hour. But we were told we couldn't do that. We also had to leave our unicycles at home, which is a shame because Plika here can jump through a hoop of fire while pedaling one of those. And that reminds me, Chug continued, we were told we had to leave the flaming hoops behind also.
He turned towards Plika.
Did you bring the ribbons and confetti?
She honked sadly.
Dang,
said Chug, dropping his shoulders.
Well, that just means we only have a few jokes.
I'm assuming they're dirty ones.
Is there really a point in having any others?
Murphy didn't answer.
Anyway, that leaves us about 5 minutes of material.
What, that's it? 5 minutes? That's barely any time at all.
Not much I can do about it, pal,
Chug replied defensively.
I'm the only one capable of telling jokes here, unless you know a few.
I don't.
See? And Plika can only honk. I didn't mean it in a bad way, Plika.
5 minutes isn't enough time.
I suppose we could do that, sure. It's been a while, though.
What did she suggest?
Dancing.
Clowns dancing?
What's wrong with clowns dancing?
Nothing. It's just, never mind.
How long is your dance routine?
About 10 minutes, give or take.
So, Murphy mused as he stood back up, that would give me roughly 15 minutes to sneak through the house, snag the package, and slip back to the ship.
Yep.
Well, it's not great, but it'll have to do. Chapter 5. Lopso 2. Lopso 2 wasn't your typical world, but that was only because it wasn't actually a planet. It was a space station. Yes, it was a massive structure that was big enough to house 500,000 people, but it was robot-built. Chug took the comm and talked through landing procedures with the Lopso 2 hangar computer as Plika piloted them in.
Commence landing at Dock 13,
directed Station Command.
Dock 13,
echoed Chug.
Got it.
Wait, how big is your ship?
He said as Plika pointed at one of the lower displays.
85 by 46,
Chug answered and then nodded at Plika. Not sure if you'll be able to fit something that big in here, said Station Command.
That's what she said,
Chug responded. Excuse me? Murphy groaned.
Nothing,
Chug recovered quickly.
you were saying.
Right, Station Command said after a moment. Rerouting you to Dock 11.
Roger that,
Chug answered and then disconnected the comm. Murphy took that opportunity to connect with the main LOPSO 2 system via his datapad. He wouldn't be able to get much, but they would certainly have guest services options. The pad said that it was attempting to connect, but it just continued spinning. Nothing was happening at all. That's when it dawned on him that the technology on LOPSO 2 was likely incompatible with that on Segnol. Damn, he murmured.
What's wrong?
Can't get a connection to their main system.
Oh, you need a station code.
Chug tapped a few keys in one of the terminals and the screen displayed a login.
Are you a frequent club member at LOPSO 2 by chance?
No, Murphy replied with a frown.
Then it'll be 10 credits per hour.
I don't have any money. Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, I have Segnol currency, but not LOPSO 2.
They take Segnol standard,
Chug noted.
The exchange rate sucks, but if you need something, what's a couple of extra bucks out of your pocket? Besides, can't you expense it with your boss?
True. Murphy unzipped the inner compartment of his duffel bag and pulled out a 20. You said it was 10 credits?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, how much is that in Segnol standard?
$63,200.03.
Murphy blanched. Even if he did have that kind of money, he sure as hell wouldn't spend it on a mission for the SSMC. How much to sign up for the club?
Oh, that's free, but you have to provide your intergalactic email address.
Okay, well, what about spam?
I can check the menu.
No, I'm talking about junk mail. You know, loads and loads of emails about regrowing your hair, creams that guarantee that you'll look younger, pills that promise to make your, parts bigger.
Why would I want to make my parts bigger?
Said Chug while tilting his head.
Oh, I see. Huh. Do those work?
Not in the least, Murphy replied a bit too quickly. I mean, I've seen news reports that... Never mind, forget it. He pushed Chug out of the way and entered in an email address that he always used for this sort of thing. It took a few minutes of data entry and verifications, but he finally got access to their network. According to the Citizens Record System, Mr. Avakov was only a couple of miles from the station. That could be both good and bad. Good because Murphy could get back to the ship quickly. Bad because so could Mr. Avakov. The ship touched down and Plika set about shutting down all of its systems. Murphy directed Chug to get their gear ready while he took off his standard SSMC jacket and replaced it with a nondescript black one. Then he glanced once more at the picture of the box that Parfait had provided. It was brushed steel with pink padded panels on each main face. On top was a fluffy handle that matched the panels. Frankly, the damn thing looked more like a wealthy woman's jewelry box than a military target, but that could have been a disguise. Chug opened the shuttle door and stepped outside. He moved to the left of the opening. Plika stepped out and moved to the right. Murphy followed and purposefully walked down toward the door that he assumed led to the main station. There was no flopping noise. He turned back to see that the robots were still standing at the shuttle, and they were saluting at each other. With a moan, he walked back and saluted them both. There, he said irritably. Now let's go already. Chapter 6. Getting In. Truth be told, Murphy didn't have a clue how he was going to get inside the house, much less the complex itself. And yes, it was a complex. There were high brick walls with spiked rails on top, and it circled the entire compound. The only non-brick section was blocked by a massive iron gate, and it was manned by guards.
How are we supposed to sneak into that place?
Said Chug. Agreed Plika. Could you honk a little quieter, please? Said Murphy with a dark look. Thanks, he said and then turned to Chug. As for how to get inside, I honestly don't know. There are vehicles going in. I suppose we could just creep alongside one of those. He looked down at their feet. Or maybe not.
Why don't we just ask if we can go inside?
Suggested Chug. Do you two know nothing about stealth?
Look, pal, you're the one who said that we were the show, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's actually the case.
Only one way to find out.
Murphy studied the area a little bit more to see if there was some other option. He spotted a tree that was sitting right outside the perimeter on the right wall. It would be a tough climb, and the jump over the wall would be even trickier, but he could probably manage it. Not with these two clowns, though. The second option was to walk up and try to convince the guards that they were the entertainment for the night. He'd be the manager, of course. Something told him that he had to trust that Rear Admiral Parfait had planned for things like this. Murphy was only an ensign, so he didn't expect to be given all the details on missions. Something like this was kind of huge, though, and that's what gave him pause. He supposed that the worst-case scenario was that they would get turned away and then he'd have to find some other access option. "Fine," he said finally, shrugging. "Let's go to the front gate." They walked across the street between the vehicles that were all vying to get into Avakov's residence, and then straight up to the guard station.
"Well, it's about time you arrived,"
the oldest guard said to Plika.
"You were supposed to be here an hour ago,"
she said, and then pointed at the flower on her shirt. The guard leaned forward for a better look, and it squirted water in his eye.
"Oh, a wise guy, eh?"
said the guard while wiping his eye. Murphy jumped forward as the guard reached for his baton. No, nothing like that. Just a clown being a clown."
"Heh,"
the guard said with a grunt.
"Who are you?"
"I'm their manager."
"Well, you're late."
"Not easy working with clowns," Murphy said apologetically.
"I'll bet."
"Anyway, sir, we're obviously anxious to get set up, so if you could just point us—"
"Go in there,"
the guard interrupted while pointing to the side entrance that sat by the guard station.
"Follow the signs to the showroom, and make it quick. The show is supposed to be starting soon."
"You heard him," Murphy said to the clowns. "Let's move it." They slipped through the gate and clomped down towards the large building that had a massive E stenciled over the doorway. Murphy assumed it stood for entertainment. That turned out to be incorrect. It stood for eatery, but next to it was a smaller building that had an ET above it. That one housed extraterrestrials. Finally, they came upon one that said SR, which, it turned out, was the showroom. Murphy scanned the area for guards and found that there weren't any. Chances are there were cameras, though, but fortunately it was getting dark. He could only hope that they weren't using infrared surveillance. "Okay, you two go in and get set up. Try and make it last at least 15 minutes or more if you can. Once you're done, get back to the ship. I'll be there waiting for you." Murphy looked questioningly at Chug.
She's asking what you want us to do if we get to the ship first.
"Wait for me."
Got it.
Murphy was about to leave when a thought struck him. "Hey, how come you're not acting all goofy and such like you have been?"
Nerves.
"Nerves?"
Performance anxiety,
Chug replied.
happens to the best of us, doesn't it, Plika?
Plika was notably silent. "Uh-oh," said Chug as he studied his partner. "What?"
It's not a big deal.
"What's not a big deal?"
She's obviously just realized that we're about to go on stage.
"So?"
Well,
Chuck said with a sigh.
She tends to clam up when it's showtime.
"You're joking."
I told you already that I don't make jokes right before a show. It's how I keep my cool.
"By not making jokes?"
Right.
"And Plika gets stage fright."
Yep.
He looked at Plika and said, "Is this true, Plika?" She did not respond in her normal way. "Terrific. Look, just do the best you can and meet me back at the ship." He turned to walk away, but then stopped once more. "And make sure you're both standing at the door to the ship waiting to return my salute. Got it?" Plika's hand stayed away from the horn.
We got it,
said Chug as he pulled Plika into the building. Chapter 7. The Room. The compound was dimly lit as the artificial lighting abruptly shut off. It was obvious that those who had built this fake world had attempted, albeit poorly, to make it feel like a standard planet, having both night and day. As it was, dusk seemed to only last about 10 minutes, and then it was as though someone flipped a switch. This worked out better for Murphy since his goal was to sneak in, steal the box, and slip out. He stuck to the sides of the buildings, ducking beside bushes and slipping behind trees whenever guests walked by. Finally, he was in his element. There were no clown robots to contend with, no inappropriate rear admirals to grimace at, and no commanding officers to shout orders at him as they stood safely near the rear of the squad. Segnal Space Marine Corps regulations required that all commanders lead from the rear, after all. Murphy couldn't help but imagine that Parfait had brought up that legislation. though what had been adopted was not likely what his intent was. A man who fit the description of Mr. Avakov stepped off a small deck that was attached to the back of the main home. This had to be where the box was stored. Murphy pulled forth his sidearm and prepared to go in. If there was trouble, he wanted to be ready. It wasn't in his DNA to kill, but the memory of his SSMC slogan, which was attack, defend, and or destroy, told him that sometimes being a soldier meant having to use a weapon. Still, he couldn't help but hope that it wouldn't be necessary. As soon as Avakov was out of sight, Murphy sneaked around the corner and up onto the deck. The place was dark and the door was unlocked. That was convenient. He slipped inside and studied the area. The ambient light provided enough visibility for him to see that this was a high-end office. It was the perfect place to keep a box for safekeeping, unless one considered the door being left unlocked, of course. That made Murphy think that there had to be a safe somewhere. He tucked the sidearm away and began gently pulling each one of the pictures back, hoping that there was a secret opening behind one of them. No luck. They were all firmly affixed to the wall. Next, he began opening cabinets, but there was nothing in them but papers and books and alcohol, standard fare for wealthy people. Right as he was about to give up, he glanced over at the desk and saw two things. One was the box that matched the image Parfait had given him. The other was Ivan Avakov, who was standing by the deck door while pointing a weapon at Murphy. Chapter 8. The Upper Hand. Avakov flipped on the lights and motioned Murphy towards one of the chairs. "Have a seat," he said in a gruff voice that did little to betray his looks. He fit the description that Parfait had provided flawlessly, except for that the clothes weren't quite as stretched as the Rear Admiral had recalled. "I'm assuming Parfait sent you along, yes?" Murphy said nothing. He simply moved over and sat down. "You don't have to answer me. I already know." Again, Murphy kept quiet as he attempted to think a way out of this mess. "Fact is, I've been wondering why he hadn't sent someone along sooner," Avakov said as he set the weapon on the table and walked over to grab a glass of brandy. Murphy gingerly grabbed his sidearm and leveled it at the older man. "It's not that I—" He turned back and saw that the upper hand was no longer his. He glanced at the gun on the desk and snapped his fingers. "Damn it. I always do something like that. Now I suppose you'll want to strip my clothes off so you can tie me up." "What?" Murphy said, finally breaking his silence. "No, I really don't want to do that." Well, you could at least tie me up." "Or I could simply shoot you," Murphy stated. "Are you sure that Stanley would want you to do this?" Avakov said, and then he resumed pouring himself a drink. "Care for one?" "No, I simply want to take that box, return to Signal, and be done with this mission." Murphy reached out and took the gun off the desk. "I'd rather be civil about this so that nobody gets hurt, but I'm willing to use this if I have to." "Come now, I pose you no threat since I no longer have a weapon. However, you should probably tie me up anyway, just in case." Murphy frowned. "Based on how you're acting, I take it you know the Rear Admiral pretty well." "Well, we bunked together in the war." "You were in the SSMC?" Murphy asked with a look of surprise. "No." "Oh." Avakov walked back to the desk and sat down. He took a sip from the glass of brandy and looked up at Murphy. "Did Stanley tell you what was in the box?" "I have direct orders not to open it." It would be a lie to say that Murphy wasn't curious about the contents, but he was a good soldier, mostly, and that meant that he would follow orders the best that he could, unless they were insane orders, of course. He was no lemming. "Well, I'm under no such orders," Avakov said as he flipped open the box and spun it towards Murphy. Inside were what looked like schematics of some sort. There were also a few pictures of the Rear Admiral in precarious poses, and another few pictures of Avakov stripped and tied up. Murphy did his best not to look at anything but the schematics. "Ah, blueprints, eh?" Avakov said confusedly, and then pulled out the paper that held the technical drawings. "Oh, so that's where this went. I must have dropped this box while I was looking at the pictures the other night. These are just instructions for putting together that end table beside you." Murphy looked over and saw one of those pieces of furniture that you build yourself. "Seriously? You buy that junk?" "I like working with my hands." "Right. Murphy wasn't so sure what to think about all this. So, you're telling me that the only thing of significance in that box are those photographs?
Well, they may not seem all that important to you, argued Avakov. But to a man who is a high-ranking official in the military, it's a big deal.
Why?
Blackmail, of course.
Ah. Avakov slowly closed the box and picked up his drink again.
But I'm tired of holding this grudge. Fact is, I miss Stanley.
Great, Murphy said, having the feeling he knew where this conversation was heading. Look, no offense, but I really don't want to know about this. I just have to bring that box back and complete this mission.
Fine, but you'll have to tie me up or I'll call security.
Seriously?
I've got to get something out of this young man.
Ugh, said Murphy. Okay, fine, I'll tie you to the chair, but you're keeping your clothes on. A few minutes later, Murphy was mentally bleaching his memory as he moved towards the door. If it ever came to light that Parfait was sending him off to handle a mission such as this, the Rear Admiral would be done for. Part of him wanted to turn in Parfait, but another part of him reminded that Parfait, while definitely odd and inappropriate, was far better to deal with than the likes of Rear Admiral Conster.
One more thing,
Avakov said. Yes, said Murphy without looking back.
Please tell Stanley I no longer wish to fight with him. Let him know that there is a letter for him in that box.
Murphy merely nodded and stepped out into the night. Chapter 9. A Hit. The path was clear coming back the way he'd gotten in, so Murphy double-timed it. Murphy figured that Chug and Plika would be halfway to the ship by now. Passing by the showroom, he realized that they were still on stage. Not that he could see them, but rather that he heard laughter from inside the walls, and he could have sworn that there had been a honk or two as well. He glanced at his wristband and noted that they should have left minutes ago. Realizing that he simply couldn't leave them behind, he bolted up the steps and cracked open the door.
And then there was this guy who wanted to write erotica, said Chug to the riveted crowd. He finally gave up because it took too long to type with one hand.
The crowd burst into laughter again.
There was an old guy in my neighborhood who had a birthday,
Chug said as the crowd died down.
Each neighbor chipped in $20 and got the old fella a hooker. She knocked on his door and told him that she was there to give him super sex. He looked her over for a second and replied, "I'll take the soup."
Murphy groaned, but those in the auditorium who were clearly liquored up were having a blast.
An old guy's wife kicks the bucket, and after the funeral, the pallbearers are carrying the casket out. They bump into a wall, and they hear a groaning sound coming from inside. They crack open the casket and find her miraculously still alive. She lives for 10 more years and then passes away again. After the funeral, the pallbearers are carrying out the casket, and as they turn the corner, her surviving husband calls out, "Hey, watch out for that wall."
Ugh, said Murphy. He waved at Plika and pointed at his watch. She nodded back at him and walked over to Chug. She commanded.
"Looks like my time is up,"
Chug said to the crowd.
"Don't forget to tip your waiters."
The audience clapped heartily as Chug and Plika did a final bow and then bolted out the side door. Murphy met up with them, and they casually walked through the guard gate into freedom.
"I haven't had that much fun in years,"
Chug stated. "Glad you guys had a good time, but we have to get back to the ship and out of here before someone finds Avakov." The clowns were surprisingly speedy, even with their huge clown feet. Murphy made them run on the synthetic grass so as not to draw too much attention to themselves, but they were still pretty loud. He couldn't deny the fact that they had been the perfect diversion to allow Murphy access to Avakov's room, but it did bother him that Avakov seemed to know that someone was going to attempt a break-in. Maybe it was commonplace on this planet. Murphy didn't know. What he did know was that they had very little time to get away. Once they arrived at Space Dock, Murphy stepped to the entryway and waited for the clowns to move to either side and salute. He saluted back and stepped through the door. "Come in and lock it up," he commanded without looking back. "Plika, get this thing up and running. Chug, get on with Station Command and hook up our clearance."
"You got it."
Murphy double-checked his duffel bag to make sure that the box was still safely inside. He dared not jostle the bag too much, as he certainly did not want to see those pictures again.
Station Command. This is Courtnor Shuttle 19932, requesting permission to depart,
Chug said through the comm.
Shuttle 19932, you are authorized to depart, bearing 13.9 at vector 222.42. Come again, Shuttle 19932,
said Station Command.
If I could come again.
Chug, interrupted Murphy. Get us out of here.
Sorry, boss,
Chug said, and then uncovered the mic.
We're ready for liftoff.
Safe travels, Shuttle 19932.
Thanks.
They arrived at the Chaffian hub without a hitch, though Plika did succeed at tagging Murphy with another pie in the face before he left. Chocolate cream this time. Chug stood by the door as Murphy stepped out. Plika had stayed on board but was right inside. Murphy saluted. Thanks again to you both. I wasn't sure how all this was going to turn out, but clearly the man who built those orders deserves a lot of credit for requesting that you two join this mission.
Oh, shucks,
said Chug, waving his hand melodramatically.
Stop it, will ya? You're going to make Plika blush.
Right. Well, it was swell serving with you both. If you're ever on Segnal, don't bother looking me up.
Good one,
said Chug.
See, you can be funny if you want to be.
I was being funny, Murphy replied with a wink. Chapter 10. Promotion.
Well done, Murphy.
Thank you, sir.
Was Mr. Avakov wise to your visit?
He was, sir, admitted Murphy. It was almost as if he knew we were going to be there.
Well, I have been trying every year for the last 7 years to get my hands on Avakov's package.
Murphy decided to assume that the Rear Admiral was not speaking metaphorically, though that would have been nice information to have known, sir.
Well, I've had my hand on it before, you know.
Clearly, Murphy had been wrong to make his prior assumption. My point, sir, is that I was obviously placed in a situation that was already volatile, and it would have been prudent information for the mission to know that Mr. Avakov would likely be expecting me.
Oh, lighten up, Ensign, Parfait said with a sniff. It's not like you were shot or captured.
That's only because I disarmed him and tied him to a chair, Murphy replied evenly.
Oh? Then what happened?
I took his package, sir.
The whole thing?
Of course, sir. Why would I take only part of it?
Sounds delightful. Do give me the full details.
Parfait sat at his desk, put his elbows on the table and rested his chin in his hands, and then he gazed up at Murphy with puppy dog eyes.
Spare nothing.
Murphy gave him a funny look as he realized that the Rear Admiral was doing it again. While Murphy was still getting to know Parfait, it was clear that he was going to have to choose his words carefully from then on. He pointed at the box sitting in front of Parfait. I was talking about that package, sir.
Oh, wait a moment here, Parfait said as his eyes lit up. Are you telling me that you were able to fit this entire package in?
I picked up that box, sir, Murphy interrupted before things got out of hand, and placed it in my duffel bag. And no, sir, that is not a euphemism.
Oh.
Parfait looked temporarily disappointed, but he quickly recovered.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I thought you meant.
The Rear Admiral stood back up and walked over to his office window. It was mid-morning, so the sun shone on the people below. Murphy was hoping to get back to his barracks soon. Frankly, getting away from Parfait would be suiting enough.
You didn't open it, did you? Said the Rear Admiral.
Murphy couldn't help but sense a hopeful sound in the question, but he chose to ignore it. No, sir, he said honestly. I did not open it. Parfait's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly.
Oh, good,
he said, though it didn't sound very convincing. He then turned around and leaned back against the glass and folded his arms.
Did Mr. Avakov happen to say anything about me?
He mentioned a few things, sir, Murphy said, but nothing I'd care to repeat except that he stuck a note in that box for you.
A note, eh?
Yeah, he also said something about not wanting any he doesn't want to be your enemy any longer. Parfait walked back to his desk and put his hand on the box. It was clear that he wished to open it.
Maybe I should show you what's in here, Ensign.
No, thank you, sir, Murphy replied more vehemently than he probably should have. As you said, sir, I'm only an ensign. I don't feel that I'm ready for such knowledge yet. Maybe when I reach the level of lieutenant or something, sir.
Ah, yes, that reminds me,
Parfait said with a smile as he turned towards his computer. He typed for a moment and then waited, and then clicked something. There! You've been promoted.
What?
It would have been faster, but I had to wait for the system to email me so I could approve my request.
You have to approve your own request, sir?
Of course, Murphy. It's in the regulations.
Ah, right.
Well, you're now officially a lieutenant soldier, Parfait said with wiggling eyebrows.
That was unexpected, sir.
Well deserved. You're a good soldier, Murphy.
Thank you, sir.
Now, you were saying that if you were a lieutenant, you would be interested in seeing what's in this box.
This time it was Murphy's turn to slump. Sir, he admitted, I already know what's in the box.
So you did open it?
No, sir, I did not. Your orders were clear on that.
Well, then how do you know what's in it?
Mr. Avakov opened it and showed me the contents.
Ah.
Parfait leaned back in his chair, appearing worried.
I hope you understand that it was just a holiday thing, a joke of sorts.
I thought nothing different, sir, said Murphy, though that wasn't true.
It's not like I make a habit out of dressing up in such a fashion, Ensign Murphy.
It's Lieutenant Murphy now, Murphy replied, and I don't judge, sir.
Good, good. Well, I guess that's that then. Well done on your mission, Ensign. Lieutenant Murphy.
Parfait then added,
Do note that I'll be recommending you for the Primus 12 mission as well. Make sure that you brush up on your standard mission protocols for that one.
It was just further proof that Parfait held Murphy's fate in his hands. Based on recent experience, the Rear Admiral would probably rather hold Murphy in his arms. Murphy shuddered at the thought. Yes, sir. Parfait looked Murphy over once more and sighed serenely.
Dismissed.
Murphy saluted, spun on his heel, and got the hell out of that office. Chapter 11. Completion Confirmation. Murphy entered the barracks and found that the title next to his name had already been updated and that he'd been moved up higher onto the board. This wasn't all that surprising since everything was handled digitally these days, but he couldn't help but think the Rear Admiral's computer would be slower than the rest. His bunk was still intact, but there was a message on it commanding that he pack up his belongings and move to Building 6. That meant he would get his own room. Nothing wrong with that, he thought with a smile. He sat on the edge of his bunk and pulled out his datapad to look over the mission completion confirmation. It was SSMC policy to send an email to all personnel involved in every mission. This made little sense to Murphy, seeing that an open communication such as this was clearly less than secure, but there wasn't much that the SSMC required that did make sense. The first section merely detailed the primary objective, its level of secrecy, and the fact that Murphy had completed the mission and was promoted to lieutenant for a job well done. He scanned over the rest and found most of it to be fluff until he hit the correspondence between Rear Admiral Parfait and the Courtnor Space Command. Now was his chance to see how the Rear Admiral had so skillfully masterminded this ordeal. The headers read, To the Courtnor Robot Space Command, from the Office of SSMC Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait, regarding Top Secret Mission.
Dear Courtnor Robot Space Command, we're in need of your assistance regarding a top-secret mission to Lopso 2. The details of this mission cannot be fully divulged, but we are requesting that you provide transportation from the Chafian hub to Lopso 2 and back again. Additionally, we ask that you provide 2 of your soldiers to assist in this mission. Best regards, Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait.
So far, it seemed innocuous enough, but Murphy's curiosity got the better of him, and he continued scrolling in order to read the Courtnor's response. The header said, To the Office of SSMC Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait, from the Courtnor Robot Space Command, regarding Top Secret Mission.
Dear Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait, we at the Courtnor Robot Space Command would be honored to assist you in your time of need. Could you please relay your specifications for the 2 soldiers that you have requested? For example, do you require robots who are trained in special weaponry, stealth tactics, espionage, computer hacking, data manipulation, explosives, or any combination therein? Sincerely, Courtnor Robot Space Command.
At this point, Murphy had to see how the Rear Admiral had replied. For all of the things that he'd learned about Parfait, the man had never shown the ability to think strategically. But the way things had been set up with this mission, Murphy couldn't help but think that the Rear Admiral wasn't quite as inept as he'd seemed. Murphy scrolled down once more. The header read, To the Courtnor Robot Space Command, from the office of SSMC Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait, regarding top secret mission.
Dear Courtnall Robot Space Command, it doesn't matter, just send any old clowns. Best regards, Rear Admiral Stanley Parfait.
Thank you for listening to this Platoon F adventure. If you enjoyed this mission and would like to listen and or read more from these authors, please visit www.johnplogston.com. Also, please search Amazon and Audible for the author name of John P. Logston to find more stories. Do note that these authors write in many worlds and have plenty of books to keep you giggling for weeks. And now I invite you to enjoy the full Alien Love Bones song, written by yours truly.
Went for a drive on a Saturday night. Rolling down the highway when I saw a really bright light. Pulled into a field. There was a disc in the sky. Next thing I knew, they beat me up, looked out the window. I was about a mile high. The queen of that ship sat on her throne. She took one look at me and told her minions to leave us alone. She wants some alien love bone. Alien love bone. She needs some alien love bone. Alien love bone. Now there's a fire. Since my trip to outer space, I can't stop thinking about that little alien and that look I put upon her face. So every night I go back to that field, wearing my red robe. The UFO beams me aboard, but it's not me getting probed. She lives in the intergalactic time zone. It doesn't matter if it's day or night. She never leaves me alone. She wants that alien love bone. Alien love bone. She needs that alien love bone. Alien love bone. She's only 3'7", so thin